suburban neighborhood, two houses sat side by side. One was a grand, sprawling mansion with a perfectly manicured lawn and a white picket fence. The other was a modest bungalow with peeling paint and a small, overgrown garden. In the mansion lived a pampered house cat named Fluffy. She spent her days lounging on plush cushions, nibbling on gourmet treats, and batting at toy mice. Fluffy had never known hunger, cold, or danger, and she liked it that way. In the bungalow lived a scrappy stray dog named Rusty. He spent his days scavenging for scraps, barking at passers-by, and curling up in a makeshift bed made of old blankets. Rusty had never known comfort, luxury, or security, but he had learned to survive on his own. Fluffy and Rusty had never met each other, but they had heard about each other from their respective owners. Fluffy's owner, Mrs. Johnson, often complained about the filthy mutt next door who was always barking and digging up her flower beds. Rusty's owner, Mr. Smith, often grumbled about the snobby cat next door who was always sunbathing and hissing at him through the fence. One sunny afternoon, Fluffy was dozing in a patch of sunlight when she heard a commotion outside. She peeked out the window and saw Rusty digging furiously in the dirt. Curious, she tiptoed outside and approached the fence. "What are you doing?" she asked, trying not to sound too interested. Rusty looked up and barked. "Oh, hello there. Just burying a bone I found. Don't mind me." Fluffy wrinkled her nose. "Bone? How gross. I prefer caviar." Rusty chuckled. "Different strokes for different folks, I guess." Fluffy and Rusty began chatting through the fence, each learning a bit more about the other. Fluffy was impressed by Rusty's street smarts and survival skills, while Rusty was intrigued by Fluffy's plush lifestyle and fancy toys. They discovered that they both enjoyed napping in the sun and snacking on treats, and before they knew it, they had become fast friends. They would meet at the fence every day, chatting and playing together as best they could through the narrow gaps. Rusty would tell Fluffy stories about his wild adventures on the streets, and Fluffy would regale Rusty with tales of her luxurious life indoors. However, their owners soon became aware of their friendship and disapproved. Mrs. Johnson was horrified that Fluffy was associating with a dirty dog, while Mr. Smith didn't want Rusty getting too close to a prissy cat. They scolded their pets and tried to keep them separated by building a taller fence and keeping a closer eye on them. Fluffy and Rusty were devastated. They missed each other's company and longed to play together again. They tried to sneak out and meet each other, but their owners always caught them and scolded them even more harshly. Finally, Fluffy and Rusty had had enough. They decided to take matters into their own paws and find a way to stay connected despite their owners' interference. They enlisted the help of some other animals in the neighborhood, including a clever raccoon and a friendly bird, and together they hatched a plan. One moonlit night, Fluffy and Rusty snuck out of their houses and met at a secret spot in the park. They cuddled up together, sharing treats and stories as they watched the stars twinkle above. They knew they would face consequences if they were willing to risk it for the sake of their friendship. For weeks, Fluffy and Rusty continued to meet in secret, using their clever animal friends to help them evade their owners' watchful eyes. They even started to dream of a life where they could be together all the time, without any interference from humans. One day, as they were lounging in the park, they overheard a group of humans talking about a new animal shelter that was opening up nearby. The shelter promised to take in strays and give them a safe and loving home, no matter what their background was. Fluffy and Rusty's hearts swelled with hope. Could this be the solution to their problem? They decided to investigate the shelter and see if it was as good as it sounded. They snuck into the shelter that night, and what they found amazed them. There were dozens of dogs and cats of all shapes and sizes, playing together and cuddling up in cozy beds. The humans who ran the shelter were kind and gentle, and they promised to take care of every animal who came through their doors. Fluffy and Rusty knew that this was the perfect place for them. They begged the humans to take them in, explaining that they were best friends who couldn't bear to be apart. The humans were hesitant at first, but when they saw how devoted Fluffy and Rusty were to each other, they relented. Fluffy and Rusty were given their own cozy room at the shelter, complete with plenty of toys, treats, and soft beds. They spent their days cuddling and playing together, and their nights dreaming of their future together. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, Fluffy and Rusty grew even closer. They became inseparable, spending every moment together and making each other's lives richer and more fulfilling than they ever could have imagined. And when it came time for the shelter to find permanent homes for its animals, Fluffy and Rusty were adopted together by a kind family who understood their special bond. They moved into a cozy house with a big backyard, where they spent their days chasing each other and napping in the sun. Fluffy and Rusty's story became legendary in their neighborhood, inspiring other humans to adopt stray animals and give them a chance at happiness. And as for Fluffy and Rusty, they knew that they would always be together, no matter what challenges came their way. For they were more than just a cat and a dog, they were true friends, through thick and thin.